Well, friends, we've made it to the end of First Corinthians, where today we're looking at together at chapter 16, which is the final chapter in the book of First Corinthians. And here Paul's going to give us like he typically does with a lot of his letters, he's going to give us a kind of his outro, his farewell, his goodbyes, because in these letters were very personal. And as you read through chapter 16, you'll see a bunch of names that you don't recognize. And then even at the very end, Paul says, look, I'm writing this in my own hand. And Paul often would have somebody transcribe whatever he was saying, that a scribe or someone else would write it down. But Paul felt so very personal about the church, or towards the church at Corinth, that he said, hey, look, I'm writing this with my own hand. I want you to know this is me to you. And he talks about how much he loves them and he's going to miss them. And he looks forward to spending some time with them a bit later. At the beginning of the chapter, Paul talks to the church there about their gift that will be taken to the church in Jerusalem. And he says, hey, don't wait until I get there to try and do a collection. Because if you want to be generous, that needs to be something that you're intentional about. So start right now. The very first part of every week, go ahead and set aside what you plan to give. That way you can make sure that you are as generous as you want to be. And that's a principle that we teach here at Fusion City Church. We teach that you should budget, that you should have a budget for your family, and that generosity should be an element, should be a part of your budget. And that way you are always as generous as you want to be. That money gets set aside and designated for generosity before other things get spent. And so here, Paul says the exact same thing. If you want to be generous, here's how you can make sure that you're as generous as you want to be. Set aside a part before you spend everything else. Don't just try to give out of the leftovers. And then about maybe 2/3 of the way through this last chapter, Paul offers this final encouragement. And he says this in verse 13. He says, be alert, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, and do everything in love. I think this phrase, everything in love, really can't be overstated how important that is. That when every interaction with somebody inside the church and somebody outside of the church, when it begins with love, when it begins with my love for that person, I don't get as easily angered. I don't get as offended as well. And it allows me to maintain influence and relationship with whoever I'm talking to, again, inside the church or outside. And so I think that's a really important remark there that Paul gives us, to do everything we do, that we should do in love towards the other person. And sometimes that's hard. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Spend some time in your group talking with the other members about who is it that you struggle to love. Who are the people that make it the hardest for you to love? And what are some ways maybe that you can think of? And maybe ask for help and advice from your other friends in the group of ways that they believe you could work on loving that individual better, or those people better. Maybe it's coworkers, or I don't know, whoever it is. What can you do? What are some steps that you can take, some practical things that you can do to love others all the time? Because Paul says that we should do everything in love. And then he says this, be strong, stand firm in the faith, be courageous. Maybe you could ask or offer to your group this as well. Where are some areas where you don't feel very courageous? What has you scared right now? And where could you benefit from the strength that God offers? And would you be vulnerable enough and open enough and transparent enough to share some of those places in your life that maybe you have a deficiency of courage, or you feel like there's a deficiency of faith or strength? And let's spend some time just encouraging one another, that God is there for us. And so do those two things. Who are you struggling to love right now? And where could you use some encouragement right now? What are some areas of your life that you feel like the others in your group could encourage you in Christ to be more on mission, where you live, learn, work, and play? Let's work on those things together. And until I get a chance to see you again, I pray that you guys continue in your study. We're going to begin studying through 2 Corinthians next. So I'm looking forward to that journey as well. I can't wait to see you guys again at church on Sunday, I hope that you are having a great rest of your week this week. We'll see you again real soon.